Hello, this is Vicky from the Spellbound Bead Company, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to make the Christmas tree brooch. You're going to need some green 4mm cubes, you're going to need some brown 4mm cubes, you're going to need a 7mm star to sit on the top, you're going to need a 20mm brooch pin, and that will make you your basic tree shape. And then for the embellishments, I've got some frost leaf green size 15s for the cord on my fairy lights, and I'm going for some silver for the bulbs. This is how we make the tree. I've got 1.5 meters of Nymo. I've got a black Nymo here. You could use dark green, dark brown, something like that as well, and a size 10 needle. And I've thread my keeper bead about 15 centimeters or so from the end of the thread. We're going to make the tree using a technique called brick stitch. If you'd like a primer video on this, we have got some available on the YouTube channel, but I will go through it with you step by step as well. What you need to do with your cubes is just check there aren't any that are particularly wonky. Just occasionally you get one that's missing a corner or that isn't quite straight, and you need them to be as even as possible on the edges for this design so that you get nice straight rows for your brick stitch. The first row of the brick stitch is a technique called ladder stitch. We're going to make a row of beads that we're then going to build on. So we start by putting 2 beads on your thread, and we're going to go back up through the first bead and then down through the second. I'll repeat this. So pick up 1 bead, go down and up. Now the beauty of using the cube beads is they will sit nice and square and nice and flat, which does make this a little bit easier than if you were using seed beads. So we're going to repeat this until we've got 9 beads for the base row. And that's 9. So that's 9 beads for our foundation row there. What I'm going to do with this bead on the end is I'm just going to double up on the thread path just to make sure it holds nice and straight. So as you can see there, that's 9 cubes all in a row. And then essentially what we're going to do now is we're going to decrease 1 bead on each row in brick stitch. So this next row will have 8, then 7, then 6, etc. So I'm just going to reposition my needle so that it's coming out under the thread that's sitting between the holes in the 2 beads there. And then I'm going to pick up for the first stitch of the row, I'm going to pick up 2 beads, and I'm going to go under the next thread and back up. Now you can see this bead's got a few little spots on the side, so I'm just going to turn it so that the side with the marks on is sitting on the inside of the stitch, so you won't see it. It doesn't really matter because you're going to embellish over the top, but just in case, it'll just save you any distress. So that's the next stitch, which is a single stitch. Because I was talking, I shall talk again. So pick up 1 bead, go under the next thread along, pull that down, and then take your needle and thread back up and through. So that's 4 beads added, and we're going to keep going along until we've picked up 8 beads. The 8th bead on the row. And through there. Okay, and we're going to repeat that technique for the rest of the rows until we've decreased down to 2. So I'll show you the start of the row again. So we're going to reposition the thread so that it comes out between the two beads. I'm going to pick up 2, go under the next thread across, and then up, and then pick up 1 under the next thread, and keep going across your row. So we're going to continue like this till the rest of the tree triangle is made. So just decrease 1 bead on every row, and I'll come back to you when there's just the 2 beads left at the top. So as you can see, I've decreased down to 3 beads on a row. So for the last row, I'm going to pick up the 2 beads and I'm going to go under the thread, and then to make sure that it sits nice and square because it's the top of the tree, I'm going to go back down through the first bead I added, under the thread loop that sits there, and back up into that top cube, and that will just sit it nice and tightly at the top. Now we're going to add the star. So when you add your star, the hole goes between 2 points on one side and out through the point on the other. So make sure that you're threading through in the right direction so you don't end up with your upside down star. So what we're going to do is we're going to thread the star on. Then we're going to pick up 3 of the size 15s and go back through the hole in the top, out the bottom, and we're going to go through the second of the cubes on the top. So I've come out of this one on my right and I'm going to go back into the one on my left. Okay, and that will just hold the star in place. I'm going to repeat that thread path just to make sure it's nice and secure. So that's gone through the star, through the 15s, that's through 2, through the 3rd, back down and out through that cube there. And there you can see you've got your basic tree shape with the star on the top. So the next thing we're going to do is add the trunk. To do this, I'm going to put my needle down, so I'm going to come back down through the beads to come out at the bottom of the trunk, bottom of the tree rather, sorry. And what I want to do is to come out, oops, through this centre bead on the bottom of the bottom row of the tree, coming away from the body of the tree. So through that one. Just check I'm coming through the right bead. And then through that bottom one in the middle. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so the trunk of the tree is done using the brown beads. You'll need 6 of these, 6, and it's done using a variation on square stitch. So start by picking up 2 beads and bringing those all the way up to the work. And now this is where you want to hold it so that the beads stay in the correct place. So I'm afraid I'm probably mostly just going to see my thumb for a minute or two. We're going to pick up another one of the cubes. We're going to come back through the second cube that we put on in the same direction as before. like that. And then if you've got a gap here, then you should be able to just slide your beads up. Go back through the cube again, and not to stab yourself in the thumb. Pick up another cube, and we're going to square stitch that one to this top cube here. So just go through the cube and back through that brown one, and then we're going to go up through the green bead that's next to the centre bead, and as I'm on the right as I'm looking at it, to connect it to the tree properly. Okay, and then we'll come back down through the centre bead and through the two trunk cubes below. Like so. And then we're going to do the same thing again. So I'm just going to turn it so that I'm working towards myself. I'm going to pick up a cube. I'm going to square stitch it to this one. And come back through. I'm going to pick up another cube. It's a bit wonky. Square stitch it to that one. And come back up into the body of the tree. And they're nice and secure. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to stitch the brooch pin to the surface of the tree. We do this before the embellishments because we're going to basically stab stitch through the tree, and it's easier to do without the embellishments in place. So grab your pin and we'll make a start on that. So to attach the brooch pin, what we're going to do is we're going to work our needle and thread. So we're coming out of the central bead on the third row up from the base of the tree, which is just here. We're then going to open up the brooch pin and we're going to offer it up to the back of the tree so that the catch is at the bottom. This means when you wear it, the pin will be facing down, which will make it easier to fasten. And if it does happen to come undone, it means you won't lose the pin. So we're going to put the needle and thread through the hole in the brooch pin. We're going to hold it against the back of the tree, and we're going to do a stab stitch. So we're literally going to stab the needle and thread down between the beads so it's coming out on the front of the brooch. We're then going to come back up out the hole in the middle, and we're going to do that twice more. So we've got 3 stitches holding this side of the brooch in place. Now just be careful to try and go straight up and down here, because you might find there's a tiny little burr on the back of the brooch which can catch your thread. And just make sure that when you pull your thread through from front to back, it's going all the way down through between the beads so that you don't end up with a loop on the front. Okay, if you listen, you can actually hear the thread click between the beads. Then all I've done is I've turned the pin around, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side of this loop. So again, I'm just going to do 3 or 4 stitches between the beads and the pin. So that's 3 more stitches on this side. And then what we'll do is we'll come up through a couple of beads here so that we're coming out behind the other hole on the pin. Now this might not line up exactly with the gap between 2 rows, but it's close enough that it will work. So again, we're just going to stab stitch through. Try not to catch that tail of thread in. There we go, just got the needle caught on the back of the pin. And we'll come through a couple of times on this side. Just make sure that's nice and firmly held in place. So then we will finish off the thread, and to do this I'm going to fasten that brooch pin up, because of course it is sharp on the end, so please be careful, don't injure yourself. You can come down through a few beads, and then I'm going to tie a knot with the working thread between the rows, come down through another bead, and then trim off the tail. And then we'll take the keeper bead off this end, and we'll do the same thing on this end here. So tie a knot around that thread there, and then come up through a few beads, tie another knot, and then again, whoops, and then trim your tail. And there we have a very basic, very simple Christmas tree. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add some embellishment. So I'm going to take another metre of thread, and put my needle on, which is now looking slightly worse for wear. It's starting to get a little bit bendy, but it's not the end of the world. And again, I'm going to put the keeper bead about 15 centimetres or so from the end of the thread. And what we're going to do is we're going to do this embellishment with the sort of fairy lights tinsel across the front. The reason we do this with a separate thread is essentially, if you change your mind about the decoration, you can cut it off without it affecting the integrity of the brooch. If it gets worn, if it gets caught, then you're not going to have a problem with your beads, your tree coming apart. And it just means if you're the sort of person who likes to change your Christmas theme every year, then you can do that without it being too much trouble. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the needle up through this bead in the bottom corner of the tree. And it doesn't matter whether you work left to right or right to left, it's whatever's more comfortable for you. And now I'm going to use my Delica beads and my size 15s. And we're going to pick up 3 beads, 3 15s, a Delica and a 15. We're then going to bring those down to the body of the work, and we're going to go back up just through that Delica bead. So we're going to leave aside the 15 underneath and just go through the Delica. And we're going to keep repeating this. So 3 15s, a Delica and a 15. Bring them up to the work. Oops. Back up through the 15. Sorry, back up through the Delica. And we're going to repeat this so that there are enough repeats to stretch across the front of the brooch. And you can vary this slightly depending on whether you want it to be tight or loose, or you can alter the distance between the bulbs, for want of a better word, the Delica beads. So as you can see here, this first one, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 repeats of the Delica, and then 3 more, and I've gone inside here. So we'll do the same on this one. So that's 3. 2, 3, 5. And then we're going to pick up 3 more 15s. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to go up through this bead on the end of the next row. So you get a slight zigzag shape sitting across. We're going to repeat this till we get to the top of the tree. We'll then finish off the thread ends the same as before, and then your tree's finished. So I'll just finish the decoration and then I'll come back to show you what it looks like. So as you can see, I've worked back and forth across the body of the tree to add the tinsel, fairy lights, decoration, embellishment, whatever you want to do. So I'm just going to add one last swag to the top of the tree here. Whoops. There. And then I'll pick up 3 more beads. And I'm actually going to come down through this top cube here, because that will stop this strand from sticking out at a funny angle. So it will just sort of lie across the top of the tree. And then again, we just need to finish off your threads as before. So it's a little bit harder now because your beads are a little bit fuller, but just work through where you can. Try and just, as you're going, just double check that you're not catching your thread around any of the embellishments, the pin back or anything like that, because if you end up with a thread, it's one of those things where you're not going to be able to finish it off very easily, and that will mean that you're going to have to take the embellishment off and start again, which isn't too bad. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it is a little bit time consuming. So that's that thread end finished off. Whoops. And obviously at this point, just take care. I'm just going to bring the thread round to the back of the work, so I'm not cutting anything that I shouldn't be, or that I don't want to. And then again, we'll take this keeper bead off this end here, and we'll just come through. Now this is where I finished off the other end, so in retrospect I should have maybe started this thread on the other side, but we'll just work through a few beads again. And there we have our finished Christmas tree brooch. So these will be available as a kit, so you'll be able to choose either the red or the silver option. I hope you enjoy making them. Let us know if you've got any comments or questions, and I look forward to seeing your brooches.